Hello and welcome to the Bullish Money YouTube channel. And today we are going to discuss the Shemitah video that, or videos that we recently produced. And here with me again is Richard. This is my PR guy. Keeps me in check, you know. Anyways, so Richard, he just recently watched the Shemitah videos, the first one, and then the follow up to the original. And so I wanted to kind of gauge people's opinions about this Shemitah cycle. I personally find it very interesting, but as I've shown through the mathematical evidence, there's some things that are in support of the Shemitah and some things that are not. So it really is there's no right or wrong answers here. You know, whatever people's opinion, you know, whatever they may be, you know, that's their opinion. And so anyways, after just recently watching the videos, I wanted to get your opinion. What are you a Shemitah believer?
I'm 50-50. I'm on maybe a little bit more in the sense of I wouldn't say if it's a biblical forecast, but I think looking at the numbers, what you had just seen there on the video, it's something to consider about, that you need to look at. I don't know if you would name it that name, but
right.
But I think something that you can actually see by using the numbers that you're showing earlier. I think that's a great thing.
Now you said that it was you were 50-50, but then you were indicated that you were leaning a little bit towards believing at least the implications of the Shemitah.
Yes.
Is that correct?
That's correct. Okay,
so I was wondering, is there any one piece of evidence or a series of evidence that you found compelling that kind of gave you that little push to make you believe in the implications of the Shemitah?
You're like going back from from 1950s all the way to the 80s, and
right.
Looking through those and pulling up the numbers. I mean, that's something that, wow, it's like, it seems like every 7 years after those, there's actually things that went positive, but also looking at it as a negative as well. So looking at that total numbers, you can't just throw that out. You have to actually look at that. So
yeah, you know, and I think that was one of the things, honestly, that I found personally to be compelling, is that when you look at the 7-year cycles outside of the Shemitah, they all average positive numbers, and a lot of them are strongly positive performances. But in the actual Shemitah cycle itself, the S&P 500 has consistently returned, on average, negative results. And it's very interesting. You know, Richard, I know you've been to church and all. You know, according to the book of Genesis, God made all of creation in 6 days, and on the 7th day he rested, right? And I'm like, you know, this is like, I'm not saying that you know, look that, you know, that's pushing it, right? If I was making an argument for the Shemitah and I pulled out the book of Genesis, I'm going to be immediately ostracized by by the scientific and the financial community. Right. So I'm not gonna. That's not my go-to argument in favor of the Shemitah. Definitely not. However,
but you got to consider it all. You got to consider it all.
If anything, it's a pretty interesting coincidence, wouldn't you say?
I think a little bit more than a coincidence, yeah.
Right.
You know?
Right, and that's the thing. You know, when you watch mainstream TV, such as the History Channel, they have shows like Ancient Aliens and, you know, all that other stuff, right? You know, UFOs discovered and all that kind of crap, right?
Right.
Well, I'm not, no offense to any of you guys that, you know, watch those shows and like those shows. I mean, I'm not, you know, I mean crap not in a negative way. I just mean, you know, stuff, okay? There was a little verbal slip there, Freudian slip. But anyways, the point is that on the History Channel, they have very little provenance to prove some of their, ridiculous, or not ridiculous, but maybe outlandish claims, like aliens visiting us from, different planets and all that stuff. And I know that aliens visit us, but I'm talking about, space aliens from different planets. And, the evidence is really shoddy, and a lot of it is based on conjecture. So using that conjecture to prove or to provide evidence for, space aliens, I think that it's pretty logical and reasonable to say that in the case of the Shemitah, it is interesting that you see this mathematical phenomenon, in that in the 6 days you find, in the 6 cycles outside the Shemitah cycle, you find positive performances, but on the Shemitah itself, it suddenly turns negative by -4%, which is a pretty significant a pretty significant magnitude.
Right.
The other thing I also found interesting, Richard, was it seems like a lot of global cataclysmic events do occur on the Shemitah cycle, like in 2008, the global financial crisis, 2001 in the 9/11 terrorist attacks. You also had 1994, which the first World Trade Center attack occurred on 1994, which again was on the Shemitah cycle. And then 1987, Black Monday, which I believe was, I believe still to this day, was the single most cataclysmic event that occurred on Wall Street, where in just one day, I believe the equity valuations gave up like 40% of value, which is nuts. It's completely nuts. It'll be like if it were to happen today, it'll be like the S&P 500 suddenly trading at 1,100 points. I mean, it's just something that is very, very insane. And what do you think about that? I mean, is that I
think just not going with the name and saying biblical terms, but just looking at the facts about the numbers that you're being run, it's something that you have to consider with all that. So, I mean, you can't throw the baby with the bathwater out, so you have to consider all that.
Right, yeah, absolutely. It's, I believe, the consensus amongst, rational people, is something to put on the back burner, something to maybe it's not Shemitah driven, maybe it's not necessarily that you invest in this based on some kind of spiritual or biblical context, but rather it's just another barometer, another indicator, another phenomenon that one may need to be aware of, before you make a crazy decision, especially when it comes, as you get closer and closer to September of 2015.
I think looking at anything, it's like where things will run its course, and I think looking at the numbers, how it just, where that things will just keep running, and then they'll have a downturn of it. So I think, like we were saying, this is one indicator of looking at it, using the numbers.
Right, absolutely. Now, Richard, do you think you'll start looking at your portfolio when as we get closer to September?
Probably. Maybe I won't drop like $5,000. Maybe just like a couple hundred here and there instead of just So
yeah, right. It's one of those things that I think the other thing that that you're saying and that other people are saying is that whatever is causing the phenomenon may not really be the issue. Like, some people get really caught up on the fact that this is the Shemitah and that this is proof of the Judeo-Christian God or the Judeo-Christian scriptures. I don't think rational people really care so much about that. I mean, that may be an interesting philosophical perspective, but I think what rational people are saying is that regardless of what is causing this phenomenon, there is certainly enough evidence to suggest that this phenomenon exists. You know, call it Shemitah, or call it the 7-year cycle, or just call it blind luck or blind misfortune, I guess in this case. Something is happening, and because something seems to be happening with frequent regularity, as with any event or phenomenon that has seemingly recurring consistency, it's just something to consider, right? Ultimately,
that is true.
Yeah. So, anyways, that's those are my thoughts for the Shemitah. Don't overthink this. That's my last piece of advice. Don't overthink the Shemitah. It's a phenomenon. Whether this is harkens the return of Jesus Christ. I can't say that. I mean, we got to keep it at least somewhat rational here, right? I mean, let's not. We're just saying let's not go crazy. Let's not go crazy. But let's not go crazy on the other side too, where we just completely ignore it. I mean, this is something that is. It's a very intriguing phenomenon. I think it deserves at least a modicum of respect, and something that you all need to consider, especially when we come down to September of 2015. You guys keep that on your calendar. Just be safe out there.